Unit 1, Chapter 1, Population, Distribution, Density, Growth and Composition. The people are very important component of a country. India is the second most populous country after China in the world with its total population of 1,210 million. 1,210 million according to 2011 census. India's population is larger than the total population of North America, South America and Australia put together. More often, it is argued that such a large population invariably puts pressure on its limited resources and is also responsible for many socio-economic problems in the country. In this chapter, we will discuss the pattern of distribution, density, growth and composition of India's population. Sources of population data. Population data are collected through census operation held over 10 years in our country. The first population census in India was conducted in 1872, but its first complete census was conducted only in 1881. Distribution of population. Examine figure 1.1 and try to describe the patterns of spatial distribution of population shown in it. It is clear that India has highly uneven pattern of population distribution. The percentage shares of population of the states and union territories in the country show that Uttar Pradesh has the highest population, followed by Maharashtra, Bihar and West Bengal. Check from the table Appendix 1A that UP, Maharashtra, Bihar, West Bengal, Andhra Pradesh along with Tamil Nadu, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Karnataka and Gujarat. From north to south, it is like Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, West Bengal, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka and Tamil Nadu accounts for 76% of the total population of the country. Other hand, share of population is very small in the states like Jammu and Kashmir, that is 1.04%, and Arunachal Pradesh 0.11% and Uttarakhand 0.84%, in spite of these states having fairly large geographical area. Such an uneven spatial distribution of population in India suggests that a close relationship between population and physical, socio-economic and historical factors. As far as the physical factors are concerned, it is clear that climate along with the terrain, availability of water largely determines the pattern of population distribution. Consequently, we observe that the North Indian plains, deltas and coastal plains have higher proportions of population than the interior districts of southern and central Indian states. Himalayas, some of the northeastern and western states. However, development of irrigation, availability of minerals and energy resources like Jharkhand and development of transport networks in peninsular states have resulted in moderate to high concentration of population in areas which were previously very thinly populated. It is stated that in Rajasthan, development of irrigation, and in Jharkhand, availability of mineral and energy resources, and in peninsular states, development of transport networks led to increase in population. Among the socio-economic and historical factors of distribution of population, important ones are evolution of settled agriculture and agriculture development, pattern of human settlement, development of transport networks, industrialization and urbanization. It is observed that the regions falling in the river plains and coastal areas of India have remained the regions of larger population concentration. Even though the use of natural resources like land and water in these regions have shown the sign of degradation, concentration of the people remains high because of the early history of human settlement and development of transport networks. On the other hand, the urban regions of Delhi, Mumbai, Kolkata, Bangalore, Pune, Ahmedabad, Chennai, Jaipur have high concentration of population due to industrial development and urbanization, drawing a large number of rural-urban migration. Density of population. Density of population is expressed as number of persons per unit area. It helps in getting a better understanding of the spatial distribution of population in relation to land. The density of population in India 2011 census according to is 382 person per square kilometers. There has been a steady increase of more than 200% per square kilometers over the last 50 years as the density of population increased from 117 person per square kilometers in 1951 to 382 person per square kilometers in 2011. The data shown in Appendix 1 gives an idea of the spatial variation of population densities in the country which ranges from a low of 17% per square kilometers in Arunachal Pradesh to 11,297% in National Capital Territory of Delhi. Among the North Indian states, Bihar has 1102, West Bengal has 1029, and Uttar Pradesh has 828 persons per square kilometers, have a higher density. Bihar, West Bengal and Uttar Pradesh have higher density, while Kerala with 859 and Tamil Nadu with 555 have higher density among the peninsular Indian states. Like Assam, Gujarat, Andhra Pradesh, Haryana, Jharkhand, Odisha have moderate densities. The hill states of Himalayan regions and northeastern states of India, excluding Assam, have relatively low density, while the Union Territory, excluding Andaman and Nicobar Islands, have very high density of population. The density of population, as discussed in the earlier paragraph, is a crude measure of human and land relationship. To get a better insight into the land and human ratio in terms of the pressure of population on total cultivable land, the physiological and the agricultural densities should be found out, which are significant for a country like India having a large agriculture population. Density of population is shown in the figure 1.2. The box has physiological density is equal to total population by net cultivated area. Agricultural density is equal to total agricultural population by net cultivated area. Agricultural population includes cultivators and agricultural laborers and their family members. Growth of population. Growth of population is a change in a number of people living in a particular area between 2 points of time. Its rate is expressed in percentage. Population growth has two components, namely natural and induced, while the natural growth is analyzed by assessing the crude birth and death rates. The induced component are explained by the volume of inward and outward movement of the people in any given area. However, in the present chapter, we will only discuss the natural growth of India's population. The decadal and annual growth rates of population in India are both very high and steadily increasing over time. The annual growth rate of India's population is 1.64% according to 2011 census. Population doubling time. Population doubling time is the time taken by any population to double itself at its current annual growth rate. The growth rate of population in India over the last 1 century has been caused by annual birth rate and death rate and the rate of migration, and thereby shows different trends. There are 4 distinct phases of growth identified within this period. Phase 1. The period from 1901 to 1921 is referred to as a period of stagnant or statutory phase of growth of India's population. Since in this period growth rate was very low, even recorded as negative growth during 1911 to 1921. Both the birth rate and death rate were high, keeping the rate of increase low. It is mentioned in Appendix 3. Poor health and medical services, illiteracy of people at large, and inefficient distribution system of food and other basic necessities were largely responsible for the high birth and death rates in this period. Now comes to phase 2. The decade 1921 to 1951 are referred to as a period of steady population growth. An overall improvement in health and sanitation throughout the country brought down the mortality rate. At the same time, better transport and communication system improved distribution system. The crude birth rate remained high in this period, leading to higher growth rate than the previous phase. This is impressive at the backdrop of Great Economic Depression, 1920s and World War II. Phase 3. The decade of 1951 to 1981 are referred to as a period of population explosion in India, which was caused by the rapid fall in mortality rate but a high fertility rate of population in the country. The average annual growth rate was higher as 2.2%. It is in this period, after the independence, the development activities were introduced through a centralized planning process and economy started showing up, ensuring the improvement of living conditions of the people at large. Consequently, there was a high natural increase and higher growth rate. Besides, increased international migration, bringing in Tibetan, Bangladeshi, Nepalis, and even people from Pakistan contribute to the high growth rate. Phase 4. In the post 1981 till present, the growth rate of the country's population, though remained high, has started slowing down gradually. According to table 1.1, a downward trend of crude birth rate is held responsible for such a population growth. This was in turn affected by an increase in the mean age at marriage, improved quality of life, particularly education of females in the country. The growth rate of the population is, however, still high in the country, and it has been projected by the World Development Report that population of India will touch 1,350 million by 2025. The analysis done so far shows that the average growth rate, but the country also has wide variations, according to Appendix 4. In growth rates from one area to another, which is discussed below. Regional variations in population growth. The growth rate of population during 1991 to 2001 in Indian states and union territories shows very obvious pattern. The states like Kerala, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Odisha, Pondicherry and Goa shows a low rate of growth not exceeding 20% over the decade. Kerala registered the lowest growth rate, not only in this group of states but also in the country as a whole. A continuous belt of states from west to east in the northwest, north and north central parts of the country has relatively high growth rate than the southern states. It is in this belt comprising Gujarat, Maharashtra, Rajasthan, Punjab, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Madhya Pradesh, Sikkim, Assam, West Bengal, Bihar, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, and the growth rate of the average remained 20 to 25%. During 2001 to 2011, the growth rate of almost all states and union territories have registered a low figure compared to the previous decade, namely 1991 to 2001. The percentage decadal growth of six most populous states, namely Uttar Pradesh, Maharashtra, Bihar, West Bengal, Andhra Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh. The percentage decadal growth rate of six most populous states, namely Uttar Pradesh, Maharashtra, Bihar, West Bengal, Andhra Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, have all fallen during 2001 to 2011 compared to 1991 to 2001. The fall being the lowest for Andhra Pradesh, 3.4% points, and highest for Maharashtra, 6.7% points, Tamil Nadu 3.9% points, and Pondicherry 7.1% points have registered some increased during 2001 to 2011 over the previous decade. An important aspect of population growth in India is the growth of its adolescents. At present, the share of adolescents, that is up to the age group of 10 to 19 years, is about 20.9% according to 2011 census, among which male adolescents constitute 52.7% and female adolescents constitute 47.3%. The adolescent population, though regarded as the youthful population, having high potentials, but at the same time they are quite vulnerable if not guided and channelized properly. There are many challenges for the society as far as these adolescents are concerned, some of which are lower age at marriage, illiteracy, particularly female illiteracy, social dropouts, low intake of nutrients, high rate of maternal mortality of adolescent mothers, high rate of HIV and AIDS infections, physical and mental disability or retardedness, drug abuse, alcoholism, juvenile delinquency and committance of crimes, etc. In view of this, the Government of India has undertaken certain policies to impart proper education to adolescent groups so that their talents are better channelized and properly utilized. The National Youth Policy is one example which has been designed to look into the overall development of our large and adolescent population. The National Youth Policy NYP 2014, launched in February 2014, proposes a holistic vision for the youth of India, which is to empower the youth of country to achieve their full potential and through them enable India to find its rightful place in community of nations. The NYP 2014 has defined youth as a person in age group of 15 to 29 years. The government of India also formulated the national policy for skill development and entrepreneurship in 2015 to provide an umbrella framework to all skilling activities being carried out in the country, and to align these two common standards and linking skilling with demand centers. It appears from the above discussion that the growth rate of population is widely variant over space time in the country and also highlights various social problems related to growth of population. However, in order to have a better insight into the growth pattern of population, it is also necessary to look into the social composition of population. Social composition. Social composition is a distinct field of study within population geography with a vast coverage of analysis of age, sex, place of residence, ethnic characteristics, tribes, languages, religion, marital status, literacy and education, occupational characteristics, etc. In this section, the composition of Indian population with respect to their rural urban characteristics, language, regional and pattern of occupation will be discussed. Rural urban composition. Composition of population by their respective places of residence is an important indicator of social and economic characteristics. This becomes even more significant for a country where about 68.8% of its total population living in villages, according to 2011 census. 68.8% of total population are living in villages of India. Do you know that India has 640,867 villages according to the census 2011, out of which 597,608, that is 93.2%, are inhabited villages. However, the distribution of rural population is not uniform throughout the country. You might have noted that the states like Bihar, Sikkim have very high percentage of rural population. The states of Goa, Maharashtra have only little over half of their total population residing in villages. The Union Territories, on the other hand, have smaller proportions of rural population, except Dadra and Nagar Haveli, 53.38%. The size of villages also varies considerably. It is less than 200 persons in the hill states of northeast India, western Rajasthan and Rann of Kutch, and as high as 17,000 persons in the states of Kerala and in parts of Maharashtra. A thorough examination of the pattern of distribution of rural population of India reveals that both at intrastate and interstate level, the relative degree of urbanization and extent of rural-urban migration regulate the concentration of rural population. You have noted that contrary to rural population, the proportions of urban population, that is 31.16% in India, is quite low, but it is showing a much faster growth over the decade. The growth rate of urban population has accelerated due to enhanced economic development and improvement of health and hygienic conditions. The distribution of urban population too, as in the case of total population, has a wide variation throughout the country. It is, however, noticed that in almost all states and union territories, there has been a considerable increase in urban population. This indicates that both development of urban areas in terms of socio-economic conditions and an increased rate of rural-urban migration. The rural-urban migration is conspicuous in the case of urban areas along the main road links and railroads in the North Indian plains, the industrial areas around Kolkata, Mumbai, Bangalore, Mysore, Madurai, Coimbatore, Ahmedabad, Surat, Delhi, Kanpur, and Ludhiana, Jalandhar. In the agriculturally stagnant parts of middle and lower Ganga plains, Telangana, non-irrigated western Rajasthan, remote hilly tribal areas of northeast, along the flood-prone areas of peninsular India and along eastern part of Madhya Pradesh, the degree of urbanization has remained low. Linguistic composition. India is a land of linguistic diversity. According to the recent Linguistic Survey of India 1903 to 1928 survey, done by Grierson. There were 179 languages and as many as 544 dialects in the country. In the context of modern India, there are about 22 scheduled languages and a number of non-scheduled languages. Among the scheduled languages, the speaker of Hindi have the highest percentage. The smallest language groups are Sanskrit, Bodo, Manipur speakers, according to 2011 census. However, it is noticed that the linguistic regions in the country do not have a sharp and distinct boundaries. Rather, they gradually merge and overlap with the respective frontier zones. Linguistic classification. The speakers of major Indian languages belong to four language families, which have their subfamilies and branches of or groups. This can be better understood from the table 1.2. The spatial distribution of religious communities in the country is given in Appendix 5 shows that there are certain states and districts having a large numerical strength of one religion, while the same may have very negligible representation in other states. Hindus are distributed as a major group in many states, ranging from 70 to 90% and above, except the districts of states along with Indo-Bangladesh borders, Indo-Pak borders, Jammu and Kashmir, hill states of northeast and in scattered areas of Deccan Plateau and Ganga Plains. Muslim, the largest religious minority, are concentrated in Jammu and Kashmir and certain districts of West Bengal, Kerala, many districts of Uttar Pradesh in and around Delhi and in Lakshadweep. They form majority in Kashmir and Lakshadweep. Religion and landscape. Formal expression of religions on landscapes is manifested through sacred structures, use of cemeteries and assemblages of plants and animals, groves of trees for religious purposes. Sacred structures are widely distributed throughout the country. These may range from inconspicuous village shrines to large Hindu temples, monuments, masjids, or ornately designed cathedrals in large metropolitan cities. These temples, masjids, gurudwaras, monasteries, and churches differ in sizes, form, space, use, and density, while attributed a special dimensions to the total landscape of the area. The Christian population is distributed mostly in the rural areas of the country. The main concentration is observed along the western coast around Goa, Kerala, and also in the high hill states of Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland, Chota Nagpur areas and hills of Manipur. Sikhs are mostly concentrated in relatively small areas of the country, particularly in the states of Punjab, Haryana, and Delhi. Jains and Buddhists, the smallest religion groups in India, have their concentration only in selected areas of the country. Jains have major concentration in the urban areas of Rajasthan, Gujarat, and Maharashtra, while the Buddhists are concentrated mostly in the Maharashtra. The other areas of Buddhist majority are Sikkim, Arunachal Pradesh, Ladakh in Jammu and Kashmir, Tripura, and Lahore and Spiti in Himachal Pradesh. The other religions of India include Zoroastrians, tribals, and other indigenous faith and beliefs. These groups are concentrated in small pockets scattered throughout the country. Composition of working population. The population of India, according to their economic status, is divided into three groups, namely main workers, marginal workers, and non-workers. It is observed that in India, the proportion of workers, both main and marginal, is only 39.8%, according to 2011 census, leaving a vast majority, about 60%, as non-workers. This indicates an economic status in which there is a larger proportions of dependent population, further indicating possible existence of large number of unemployed or underemployed people. Standard census definition. Main worker is a person who works for at least 183 days or 6 months in a year. Marginal workers is a person who works for less than 183 days, that is 6 months in a year. Main worker 6 months and above. Marginal worker less than 6 months per year. What is work participation rate? What is work participation rate? The proportion of work population of the states and union territories shows a moderate variation from about 39.6% in Goa to about 49.9% in Daman and Diu. The state with larger percentage of workers are Himachal Pradesh, Sikkim, Chhattisgarh, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Manipur, and Meghalaya. Among the union territories, Dadra and Nagar and Daman and Diu, now together one, have higher participation rate. It is understood that in the context of the country like India, the work participation tends to be higher in the areas of lower levels of economic development, since number of manual workers are needed to perform the subsistence or near subsistence economic activities. The occupational composition. The occupational composition of India's population, which actually means engagement of an individual in farming, manufacturing, trade services, or any kind of professional activities, shows a large population of primary sector workers compared to secondary and tertiary sectors. About 54.6% of total working population are cultivators and agricultural laborers, whereas 3.8% of workers are engaged in household industries, and 41.6% are other workers, including non-household industries, trade, commerce, constructions, and repairs and other services. As far as the occupation of a country's male and female population is concerned, male workers outnumber female workers in all three sectors. Promoting gender sensitivity through Beti Bachao Beti Padhao social campaign. The division of the society into male and female and transgender is believed to be natural and biological. But in reality, there are social constructs and roles assigned to individuals which are reinforced by social institutions. Consequently, these biological differences become the basis of social differentiation, discrimination, and exclusion. The exclusion of over half of the population becomes a serious handicap to any developing and civilized society. It is a global challenge which has been acknowledged by the UNDP when it mentioned that if development is not endangered, it is endangered. HDR UNDP 1995. Discrimination in general and gender discrimination in particular is a crime against humanity. All efforts need to be made to address the denial of opportunities of education, employment, political representation, low wages for similar type of work, disregards to their entitlement to live a dignified life, etc. A society which fails to acknowledge and take effective measures to remove such discrimination cannot be treated as a civilized society. The government of India has duly acknowledged and adverse impacts of these discriminations and launched a nationwide campaign called Beti Bachao and Beti Padhao. The number of female workers is relatively high in primary sectors, though in recent years there has been some improvements in work participation of women in secondary and tertiary sectors. It is important to note that the proportion of workers in agricultural sectors in India has shown a decline over the last few decades, 58.2% in 2021 to 54.6% in 2011. Consequently, the participation rate in secondary and tertiary sectors has registered an increase. This indicates a shift of dependence of workers from farm-based occupation to non-farm-based ones, indicating sectoral shift in the economy of the country. The spatial variations of the work participation rate in different sectors in the country, shown in the Appendix 5 and 5A, is very wide. For instance, the states like Himachal Pradesh and Nagaland have very large shares of cultivators. On the other hand, states like Bihar, Andhra Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Odisha, Jharkhand, West Bengal, and Madhya Pradesh has higher proportions of agricultural laborers. Bihar, Andhra Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Odisha, Jharkhand, West Bengal, Madhya Pradesh have higher proportions of agricultural laborers. The highly urbanized areas like Delhi, Chandigarh, and Pondicherry have a very large proportions of workers being engaged in other services. This indicates not only availability of limited farming land, but also large-scale urbanization and industrialization requires more workers in non-farm sectors. Thank you.